That's what's different now is we are committed as a team, as a partnership with the legislature and other state agencies, including now the federal government, no longer a sparring partner, but a working partner. Federal government, where we're not addressing headwinds, but tailwinds in terms of the support, a memorandum of understanding doubling our respective commitments to vegetation management and forest management and prescribed burns to support the Biden administration with resources, not just rhetoric, to help this collective cause. It's a different paradigm. It's a different framework.
That was back in 2021 when the government touted working with the Biden administration, saying that these fires will be put down easier as they work together. Now, fast forward to 2024, and LA's fire chief is now throwing their leaders under the bus. President Trump also has tough comments for the leadership in California. In fact, President Biden suggesting that Kamala Harris should run for president again, and Governor Gavin Newsom is begging Trump to help him with his career. Now, we got that and a ton more, but let's first focus on President Trump's comments regarding the California wildfires. And guys, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for clicking the like button and sharing these videos. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. Let's jump in.
What specifically do you think Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass could have done differently to prepare for this $50 billion fire?
You know, we have great governors in this room, and if you look at the way their states, I think I can say without exception, anybody doing poorly in here? I mean, without exception, we have great governors here that have done a great job with their states. And I don't think, and you'll probably, if there's a weak link, you're going to find it, and you're going to be asking the next question to that person. Gavin Newsom had an opportunity to have millions of gallons a week, a day, millions and millions of gallons come down from the north. And I was able to get him federal approval from that, from the Department of Commerce of all departments. I didn't realize it would go through Commerce. I would have thought environmental, but it goes through Commerce. I got all of the approvals, and he said, I don't want to sign it. I don't want the water. We don't need the water. I said, you need the water. Your reservoirs are empty, the whole place. You need the water. That was 5 years ago. And I had it all done. The work was all done. We sent it to him. He refused to sign it.
Now, the Palisades wildfires have now killed at least 11 people and have swept through more than 39,000 acres in the greater Los Angeles area. It's destroyed more than 12,000 structures already. And we're hearing new evacuation orders with more than 150,000 residents now being displaced. Now, compared to a few years ago, Gavin Newsom is now singing a completely different tune when it comes to Donald Trump. Seeing that his career is on the line, he's now willing to work together with President Trump. Watch this.
I was the pool reporter with you back in 2018 after the Woolsey fire when you came and visited with President Trump and then Governor Brown. I know you just put out a letter asking President-elect Trump to come here. What's your main message to him?
Well, two things. By the way, I was just reviewing the after-action report for the Woolsey fire as well, and the lessons learned. After every single one of these incidents, we do an objective analysis, what went right, what went wrong, but based on fact, not politicalization, not conjecture or misinformation. To whip my response to your question, I'd like the President of the United States, at least the President-elect, to come and visit. The people out here, his lives have been completely torn apart. I want him to visit and understand the magnitude of this scope and what happened to the American people that happen to reside here in California. And it's with an open hand, not a closed fist. And I'm not interested in politicizing an event like this. I don't like the venality of it. I don't like the inhumanity of that. I would like people to focus on a collaboration between the executive in Washington, D.C. and in the state of California to help rebuild a community that's been completely ravaged.
We know we've seen some public back and forth, but have you two talked about this?
No.
And have you reached out to him?
I just reached out today, specifically. Correct.
Now, of course, he's going to ask Trump for help because he's on thin ice right now. The state is running on a deficit where we're not really sure who's going to be paying for all this damage. There's also the fact that the LA Fire Department is saying outright that they didn't get the help that they needed from their own leaders. It's like they're all throwing each other under the bus. It's crazy to watch this, guys, especially when it comes to their own budget.
Obviously, any budget cut is going to impact our ability to provide service. That's at this point, that is a ground truth in regard to our ability. If there's a budget cut, we had to pull from somewhere else. What does that mean? That doesn't get done. There's delays. So in the end, again, I'm going to focus on getting us what we need from this particular catastrophe and disaster and how much it's impacted the communities that we love, I got to go after the things that will help our firefighters, keep them safe, and make sure that if and when this ever happens again, that we're properly funded and that we have the ability to do our jobs and keep people safe.
She also made it pretty clear that even though the demand for help is going up, their numbers are going down, directly cutting into the narrative that things are getting better now compared to a few years ago.
20 years ago, you had more fire stations than you have now?
We had 112 fire stations. Now we have 106. And since 2010, we've had an increase, doubled our call volume, which is firefighters responding to calls, 55% increase with 68 less firefighters.
So the city funding is not keeping up with the city's needs in real time.
No, and that's what our firefighters need.
Okay. I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to continue pressing you on this. In your mind, what were you thinking when you hear all the city leaders say, it didn't affect, everything was great, it's unprecedented and la la la. And yes, the Santa Ana winds are unprecedented. We don't have them in January. We all know that. What was going through your heart?
What's going through my heart is that our firefighters, the community's firefighters, LAFD firefighters need to be properly funded. We need to be supported so that they can do their jobs.
Now, it's easy to assume that this fire chief is simply passing on the blame to her leaders, that she's throwing all of them under the bus so as to avoid accountability. She, however, had this planned out and revealed the receipts.
Tell me what I'm looking at. This is memo after memo after memo, including to the Board of Fire Commissioners, where you pointed out your concern that you were not going to adequately be able to respond to a wildfire, an earthquake, everything that we see precisely in this city.
That's my job as a chief, is to take a big step back and understand where and how can we better serve the community. As a community needs more, we need to have more to make sure that our firefighters can serve them. I identified early, my team identified early, labor identified early that we have service gaps. So when you talk about sounding the alarm and asking and requesting budgets that are easily justifiable based off of the data, real data, shows what the fire department needs to serve this beautiful city and the beautiful community that we swore that we would. That's what that is about. It is the follow-up. It's showing and justifying where our gaps are, and it's raising and sounding the alarm that the fire department is underfunded, understaffed, and under-resourced.
The repercussions of these budget cuts are being seen today, and to call this as negligence would be understating the fact that this was clear incompetence. Now, to close this story off, guys, Fire Chief Kristen Crowley said exactly what many residents of LA has said about their leadership and these wildfires. Check this out.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say, justifiably, what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
And you're probably not going to be surprised to know that shortly after this video, the mayor called up the chief to a closed-door meeting. LA Mayor Karen Bass already denied rumors that she fired the LAFD chief in this meeting. Bass is getting a ton of heat for her budget-cutting decisions, and also removing the chief would only make that backlash even stronger. Now, on that note, guys, let's talk about this outgoing president, Joe Biden, and recent remark that he made about Kamala Harris. Now, in a press conference, President Joe Biden suggested that if he went against Trump, he could have won. Y'all believe that? Furthermore, Joe Biden also implied that Kamala Harris should probably run again in 2028.
Mr. President, do you regret your decision to run for re-election? Do you think that that made it easier for your predecessor to now become your successor?
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump, would have beaten Trump. It wasn't about, I thought it was important to unify the party. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move, I thought even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party. And it was the greatest honor in my life to be President of the United States, but I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's why I stepped aside, but I was confident she could win.
Do you think she should run again in 4 years?
I think that's a decision. I think she's competent to run again in 4 years. That'll be a decision for her to make.
Now, with that, I got to ask you guys, are you willing to see J.D. Vance go up against Kamala Harris in 2028? And would that give Democrats a better chance at the White House? Now, shifting gears here, guys, I want you guys to watch another video where I talked about the sentencing of President Trump in New York. It's being hailed as a symbolic victory for Democrats, one that might not last long because of an expected appeal. Anyway, make sure you guys check that one out. As always, thanks so much for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you next time.